And welcome into Real Deal Sports Talk. How's everybody doing? It's been a great day. Great weather we got going on today. Great things happening in sports. Great things for some teams, bad things for other teams. Glad you guys could come out and join me tonight. I really appreciate it, spending your time here with me. We're going to get to a lot of the normal segments going on right now. You know, we're going to hit the NFL on free agency and what's going on there. We're going to hit the NBA Finals, the NHL Finals. We'll do some. We'll talk a little bit about baseball today, and of course it's Wednesday, so we're going to get real at the end of the show. So we'll just jump into it today. We'll get going with NFL. That's my main area of expertise, being a former football player myself. That is where I feel most comfortable. So let's get into it. Let's just hit some of the headlines, some of the stories, some of the things that caught my eye since the last time we got to hang out. Brandon Marshall, Denver Broncos, linebacker. Not the linebacker they were hoping would sign, but Brandon Marshall, Denver Broncos, signs a contract extension. He's going to get $20 million guaranteed. Not bad. That's a good little contract for the Broncos. It works out well for them. I think on the open market, he might have gotten a little bit more money than that, but not too much. So that's a good deal for them. Hopefully they're using some of the money they're saving there for what's coming down the road with their other linebacker that we will talk about here in a minute. Other Broncos news, of course, we had the Broncos had their ring ceremony this week. Everybody got together, had their rings, got their rings passed out. Very nice ring. Don't know if you guys got the chance to check out the video that's going around on different social media or on the news at night. Very nice ring. It's a huge ring. 200 plus diamonds. It's an amazing ring. I gotta say, everybody must have heard this story about Coach Wade Phillips, defensive coordinator. Gets his ring and it's got the wrong name on it. I don't know about you, but if I'm passing out a $100,000 ring, or around $100,000 ring probably, I'm going to make sure the names are passed out. That's embarrassing. That jeweler has to now go back, apologize, make a new ring at their own expense and cost. That's just embarrassing. And the funny thing about it is, ironic thing about it is, this isn't the first time this has happened to Coach Phillips. When Coach Phillips was here in Denver previously as the head coach, he got the opportunity to throw out the first pitch at a Rockies game. I heard this story this week on 104.3 The Fan. And so he throws out the first pitch of the game, and later on he gets this call or mail, and he gets a certificate for throwing out the first pitch. And he's reading their certificate, and this one has his name spelled right, but it says, "Thank you for singing the national anthem." So I don't know what it is with Wade Phillips and these special occasions that he gets to be part of that they can't get his name right. But hopefully from this point forward, everything can work out for him. One thing that's not working out for the Broncos right now really is the way the Philadelphia Eagles are deciding to do business this offseason. If it's up to the Philadelphia Eagles, the Broncos aren't going to get to sign anybody at a price that they like anymore. Their dealing with Sam Bradford is really what cost them Brock Osweiler in the long run, because Houston probably doesn't go that high if Bradford doesn't have a deal that they're looking at going, pretty much similar players. And now you got Fletcher Cox, one of the top interior defensive linemen in the NFL. Workhorse. He's a dog. He's earned every bit of his money. But he gets $63 million guaranteed this week. That sets back Denver in their contract talks with Von Miller, in my opinion. Unfortunately, he, at his position, is a little bit more impactful than Fletcher Cox is. Fletcher Cox can be a dominant player, don't get me wrong. I would love it if somehow he ended up in Detroit and didn't sign this extension, since we lost Sue and we're a little thin at the defensive tackle position. But he's not the difference maker that Von Miller can be when he chooses to be. So all things set aside, Fletcher Cox is top 5 at his position in the NFL, sure. Von Miller, depending on which position you're going to put him at, is he an outside linebacker or is he a defensive end? He's top 3 either way because of his ability to get to the passer, because of his ability to make a team game plan for him, to make sure they have at least 2 guys if not two guys making contact, two guys checking in to see what he's doing on every play. Now, I think, I've heard all kinds of stories. People have been talking about Vaughn in this contract. They're going to continue talking about Vaughn in this contract at least until the July 15th deadline, if not until after the contract sign and or he decides to hold out for this season, which I'll talk about here in a minute. But Vaughn deserves to get paid. That's the market that I talked about on a previous show. Based on where he's at, based on what he's done, it's time to pay the man. Other guys that aren't getting paid right now, Eugene Monroe. He's missed, I think, something around 15 games or so over the past 2 seasons, something like 15, 16 games. But he's a solid offensive lineman in this league. He's had some injury issues, obviously. You miss that many games. Things are going on. He's been outspoken about his belief that the NFL needs to stop testing for marijuana and allow the players to use it as a way of not using opiates and going to the pills. Who knows how much of that played a part in the Ravens releasing him today? I do think this is a player. He's going to get picked up somewhere no matter what his opinions are on things outside of football and no matter what his injury stance is right now. Right now he's healthy. He's coming back. He's going to be able to play this year. The Ravens they got a top tackle in the draft in Stanley. They didn't need him right now, so they decided to cut bait. So good for them. Good for him. Now he's got a chance to go find a team that wants him and go out there. He probably doesn't get the big deal this offseason. Maybe he signs a 1 or 2 year contract, a little prove me deal. But he's going to get another payday before it's all said and done if he can keep himself on the field. Other players that need to really keep themselves on the field right now, Pittsburgh Steelers running back Le'Veon Bell, did he or didn't he miss a drug test? That's going to be a big issue for them coming into the regular season. We all saw what happened to that offense without him last year. We saw how all of a sudden they became one-dimensional. Yes, he's a great threat out of the backfield, but he's an elusive runner. He's able to get through tight spaces and make his own space, which not a lot of guys in the league can do right now. So let's hope for everybody's sake involved there, for the competitors' sake, for the sake of the fans and even the fantasy football players out there and their little drafts that are coming up and all that stuff. And, I partake a little bit, not to the point that I would say I'm an enthusiast. Most of the time, honestly, I've forgotten the drafts are taking place and I get stuck with auto picks, or I'll forget to set my roster before a certain week because I just got other things going on that I do. But for those people out there, let's hope that this Bell situation works out and that he didn't really miss a test and everything's going to be okay there so he can play. Here's a guy. This guy, I don't know what to tell you about this guy. I read this story and it left me just hearing crickets. I don't know if you guys read this or not, but this guy, Joey Bosa, defensive end out of Ohio State, he's playing down there right now, or he's supposed to be playing down there right now, San Diego, mandatory minicamp. But again, here's the guy, he's a rookie coming in. We got a wage scale. What are you really arguing at this point that you don't have a deal signed and you're ready to play football? Hello, are you there? Are you hearing crickets right now? Are you lost, Joey Bosa? Can we help you find your way? Can we get you back to the league, please? You're supposed to be this next J.J. Watt type. All I see right now is a person who's lost, who's getting bad advice, a rookie who should be in camp, getting ready to possibly start for a team, and instead now you're setting yourself back because you're fighting certain language. In a contract, you're not going to get more money. It's just how it's paid out. It's a set deal. It's negotiated through the collective bargaining agreement. There's nothing he can do unless he just doesn't want to play for the Chargers and hasn't said that yet. If he doesn't want to play for the Chargers, just say it. Don't play this season. Go ahead, work out for a year, come back next year, and get drafted again. Now, will you get drafted as high and make as much money? No. Teams are going to look at you and go, yeah, right. I'll pick you up late, pay you nothing, and you can prove it. So this kid's just hurting himself. He's getting bad advice. And I hope again, here's another case for all cases involved. I hope it works out for him. I hope he gets some good advice and gets out there and starts playing. Here's a story I tend to agree with the way the kicking rules are going. I don't know if you guys have heard this, but Big Ben, Drew Brees, Mike McCarthy, these are all big offensive guys in the league right now that are talking about how sticking with the 2-point conversion and just playing that out and not kicking the extra point is really what they would like to see happen. Just go for it every time. And, I have to agree with them. Because let's say you're 50% at it over the season. That's going to make up for all the kicks you didn't take. If you're 1 out of 2 on every 2-point conversion, that's like going 2 for 2 on kicks. Simple math says if you can get your team in the right play, that will work out just as well. So we'll see how some of these guys go throughout the season. We'll see if the Steelers do it a little more. They did do it more than anybody last year. Oh, this story I love. We talked about this on an earlier episode. The co-national spelling bee champion, Nihar Janga, threw up the X. Won the title, threw up the X, representing his favorite player, Des Bryant. Says it wasn't planned. He just felt it. It just came out of him. Well, today he got to go meet Des. He got to hang out with him at Cowboys training camp. They got to throw up the X together, and it was a pretty cool thing. I'm glad that got to happen. I hope Des still gets him out to a game this season, however. One person we're not going to see in a game this season, or probably any time, is Mr. Nate Robinson. Had a decent little workhorse NBA career, made stops here and there, was effective. He should have been able to stick with a team longer than he was able to, as many teams as he played for. Because he was good for a 5'8", 5'7" guy. Probably 5'6", even though they listed him at 5'8". But I don't know if you heard about this, but this week he got a tryout with the Seattle Seahawks. Now, Robinson, he used to ball up at, I believe, University of Washington. And he played some defensive back and maybe some running back too, I think, in high school. But he chose to go the basketball route. So, he says he wants to come back and get a tryout, and he'd love to play in the NFL. So Seattle's like, hey, we'll give you a shot. Well, Pete Carroll came out today and said, there's no way this is going to work out. He's not ready. There's too much he's going to have to do. And at age 31, 32 maybe, that's not going to happen for him. He might be able to catch on with some arena league or some semi-pro organization that's out there, because there's plenty of those, if he really has a football itch left in him. But as far as making it to the NFL, Nate Robinson, I have to say it's done. Sorry, but it's done. Another thing that I thought was done, that I'm sure many of you thought was done, was the NBA Finals. I honestly thought Golden State was going to go ahead and pull it out in Game 5. I was putting all of that talk about the fix and how the NBA's rigged, and watch, you're going to see Cleveland win. Draymond's out. The NBA wants this to go longer. I was putting all that aside, and I was like, no, let's just look at the play. Let's look at the two teams. Who's the better team? Golden State's going to win. And I have to say, that Game 5 was the worst game I've ever seen, if that makes sense to you. And I know some of you are going to hate on me here in a minute, but as good as Kyrie and LeBron played with their 41 points each, which I'll talk about here in a minute, as good as that was, as hot as they were, okay, I have to go and say the reffing in that contest, the refereeing and how that game was called, was horrible. So for all of you who disagree, you can go ahead and boo and hate. But on the real, the reffing was bad. No game, if you watch basketball during the season, was reffed the way they reffed last night. No game in this series was reffed the way they reffed it last night. The physicality that they let guys get away with that then led to other fouls. The flagrant fouls that were flagrant fouls all season, but then last night, their common fouls led to frustration, led to these two teams who competed a certain way all season, and now all of a sudden the game is different. You can't do that on that level. And you see that happening last night. You see how that threw certain guys off, especially on Golden State. It threw Steph Curry off. I believe it threw Steph Curry off.